Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. One of the slides that you'll see for those of you who are returning clients of our webinars, if you will, one of our donation programs that's available is on our website. You go to our main website and then you can click on choose vehicle donation or give vehicle donation. And those funds of the vehicle donation go to support local programs and state programs as well. It gives you our VP of Donor Relations, Sue Jacobs' email here on this slide, which will be included when we send it out. But just something I wanted to make everyone aware of. We've actually had a few vehicles donated over the last couple months, which is great. And we're seeing some proceeds from that coming in. So just something to keep in mind. So with that being said, my name's Steve Bennett, Senior Director of Sports and Competition for Special Mix Maryland. This is the webinar for the preseason coaches webinar for powerlifting. And hopefully that's what everyone is on for tonight, as we have several other webinars coming up this week and next week for our fall sports season. So with us tonight, if you were just joining us, you saw or you heard me talking with Derek. He's our powerlifting director for the state competition, and also is involved with some of our coaches trainings and some other things leading up to the state championships. We also have Mike Sarnowski, our VP of Sports. And joining us as well is one of our brand new sports directors, started right after summer games, Mani Madala. And I will turn it over to Mani to do a quick hello, how are you? And then we'll get moving on with the presentation. So Mani, if you want to say a quick hello, how are you? It's over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, how are you? Well, yeah, I'm Mani. I go by Mani or Mani. I'm from India, but I went to school in South Carolina. I started about 2 weeks ago, and I'll be the staff lead for powerlifting. But I'm still learning my way through things, so I'm excited to be learning from all of you. Thanks for being here, and thank you for having me.
Great, and it's a pleasure to have Mani join our staff here. Has jumped in with both feet, and a lot of stuff going on, as you all well know, leading into the fall sports season. So hopefully everyone's seen some emails from Mani, not only with powerlifting at the Fall Sports Fest, but he'll also be overseeing the golf programming for the golf season and long distance running for the Fall Sports Fest as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of the evening. So our typical agenda, we'll go over some deadlines and timelines, qualifying for the state championship, the events that are offered, some coaches training information, and some rules and reminders for the season, as well as the state championships as well. And again, the main purpose of this webinar is to talk about the powerlifting season, not necessarily, well, not at all, just related to the state championships, although we will touch on that for the Fall Sports Fest with a few of the slides. But again, if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat function. Mani will be monitoring that a little bit. And then if we also have time for questions at the end of the session as well. So as we always indicate, once again, just the big reminder, making sure everyone has their proper documentations and certifications in place before anybody attends a practice session or anything of that manner. So no athlete or volunteer can participate at any time without the Special Mix Maryland valid certifications. For athletes, that's the medical, along with the CDW or the communicable disease waiver form. And then also for volunteers, unified teammates, coaches, etc., the volunteer application, as well as their CDW signed, it's a legitimate signature, just not typed in. So again, just want to make sure everyone's aware of that as we move forward and start the season. There's no exceptions to this, so we always ask coaches and everybody to make sure before you have your first practice session or when individuals are signing up to help, whether volunteer with the powerlifting program or be a competitor, that you have all of that paperwork, or remind them and check that, make sure that everything is valid and good before they come to the first practice session. Because last thing you want to do is turn anybody away at the first practice session. So with that being said, we do have several ways that you can check on this, but always work with your area leadership. Each county or area program has their management team in place, and they have access to all of the forms and waivers and all of that information. You can also find it on our website, on our coaches resource page, which we'll talk about and give you those links in a minute. But always work with the area leadership and make sure, if you're not sure who has those forms, to confirm and make sure that everything's in place before, as I said, before you have your first practice session. So, and maybe not just right before your practice session, but again, as you start to get interest in your program, make a list, check with your area leadership, and make sure everything's ready to go before you have those first sessions. So when we say what is needed in the certification, so this is what grid we've put together to kind of outline the different things that different levels of volunteers and competitors need to be in compliance with all those forms and certifications. So as I talked about, you saw the athletes with their medical form and their communicable disease waiver or their CDW, unified teammates and general volunteers. It's the volunteer background check, as well as their CDW and the protective behaviors course. You move into sports volunteers, they then will take the additional concussion certification and concussion class. Assistant coaches have that. And then we'll talk about what they need. The assistant coach sport certification is the CSOA, or the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course. And then the head coaches have that, the CSOA, as well as the powerlifting specific training session that Derek will talk about as we look to offer that and make that available to everybody. So again, work with your area leadership, make sure these things are in place. And we have made it a change, if you will, from previous years where the medical form for the athletes now has the CDW attached, if you will, or embedded within that medical form. And similarly with the volunteer application process, that's also included in that, so that there's not going to be a medical expires on this date for an athlete, and then a month later their CDW expires. All that is in the process of being synced up, and moving forward, you only have one expiration date. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. So with that being said, if someone does not have the head coach's certification in place and valid through the end of Fall Sports Fest for powerlifting, or for any sport for that matter at the Fall Sports Fest, the credentialing for that individual will only be given to their highest level of certification. So if they have not taken the sport-specific powerlifting course, or that's not been renewed or updated and valid through the state championship, they will be credentialed to the next level, their next highest level of credentialing, if you will, or certification status. So it may be an assistant coach, it may be a sport volunteer, depending on what they have and what's valid. What we will not do is eliminate a team or competitors from competing if you don't have a head coach, although very much required, or not required, but much needed to have a head coach so that you can file protest and other things that a head coach needs to do. But if you don't have one, we're not going to eliminate the competitors. What that will mean, however, is that if a situation arises where a head coach would need or would want to file a protest, there's no one for that program who's able to do that. So it eliminates that possibility for a competitor or for a program. So we just want to make everyone aware of that, and we want the head coaches there to make sure that everything's in compliance, and they do have that opportunity if it presents itself, and for other reasons as well. We talked about the certification status and looking at our website. Here's the link on our coaches resource page at the bottom of this slide, where you can go and look at the certifications. As a coach, you have access to this. As area leadership, you have access to that. It's public knowledge, or public availability, if you will. And you can go and check on yourself. And then always, again, if you have any questions, work with your area leadership first, and then they can work through any situations you may have. And that's updated pretty regularly on a week-by-week basis. There may be occasions throughout the year where it's every 2 weeks, around holidays or something like that, but typically it's every Friday where we update that. Dottie Rush from our office does that for us. Want to acknowledge we're always looking to grow our management teams. This is the powerlifting sports management team. These individuals meet every now and then, leading into the season and during the season, just to talk about any new rules, any situations that may arise with the sport, and kind of put a plan together, if you will, of what's coming up. As an example, we were talking with Jim Downs today and Derek about the upcoming coaches training and just tackling the sport as a whole. So Jim Downs, I mentioned, from Montgomery County, a coach there. Kathy Barrett, a coach from Howard County. Kenny Long, an athlete representative from Howard County. Derek, who's our venue director. And Monty, who's our sports lead from the state office. Again, we're always looking for individuals who have an interest and have the knowledge base that can serve on these management teams as well. So we talked about the certifications, the CDWs, the medical forms, the concussions, the sports certifications, all of that. So these are the deadlines where all of these things need to be in place at the minimum. Before I give you these dates, I do want to let everyone know that these are the dates that it has to be into the state office. Why do I emphasize that? I emphasize that because your area county leadership may require that a week or two ahead of these dates so that they have it in their hands. They can update their files, send it to the state office, and make sure everything's in place by these deadlines. So as you can see, the training registration deadline for the fall season or fall sports fest sports is August 29th. So what's the training registration deadline? That's when any competitor, athletes, for other sports unified teammates, coaches, volunteers, anybody who's with that program and helping out with powerlifting at any level, if you will, all of their forms need to be in no later than that date, August 29th, to the state office. Again, your leadership from your program may require that a week or two ahead of time. If individuals are not in compliance by that date, that doesn't mean they can't eventually start training with you. But what it does mean is that they are not eligible to go on to the state championships. So they can say somebody moves to your program September 10th. They want to get involved with powerlifting, get all their paperwork in, that's fine. They can join your training program. They just won't be eligible for the state championships. The last date for missing forms, that's September 12th. Now, what that means is once we get everything in compliance, we have everyone registered for training, we go through all that process of double checking and looking at all the records. And let's say we find one or two individuals who we don't have their updated forms for. That's when we at the state office contact the local programs, say, hey, these are two people who we don't have records here. You may have them at your headquarters, but we don't have them at the state. So there's a little wiggle room there, if you will. We know that sometimes things fall through the cracks. This is a double checkpoint. So by September 12th, that's the last date to get anything in that might have slipped through the cracks. Again, all these forms need to be valid through the end of the Fall Sports Fest. So that's October 19th, 2024 of this year. So if they expire on the 18th, that's a no-go. You need to get them updated to get them everything registered through October 19th of this year. Then the competition registration deadline, that's the registration deadline where everyone's moving on to the state championships. And that deadline for registration and entering everyone into their events and things like that, that is October 7th. Again, your leadership goes in and enters that and double checks everything. They may need that a week or two in advance. So again, as we talked about in a previous slide, really work with the area leadership as coaches and other volunteers in a program and checking with them and make sure the communication is in place. So powerlifting events. If you're not familiar with powerlifting, or if there's any new coaches, which I don't think there are on the webinar tonight that I'm noticing, but we may have some new coaches coming in. So as you saw, the webinar is being recorded. Somebody wasn't able to join, they'll see this at their leisure on our website and the links there. So we have the bench press, the deadlift, and the double combination. The double combination is a combination of those two lifts ahead, the bench press and deadlift. Currently at Special Mix Maryland, we do not offer the squat or the triple combination. We may look to do that in the future based on our sport management team and interest and coaching. There's a lot more risk with the squat, and it's a tougher technique and a tougher event to take place. We may look at doing that in the future, but at this time, we're just doing the bench, the deadlift, and the double combo. So the double combo is basically a combination of the lifts, the best lift, if you will, from the bench and deadlift go into a field there, and those two best lifts, successful lifts, I should say, go in to give the result for the double combination. So if you're in the bench and deadlift, you should also enter yourself in the double combination. No reason to not to do that. But you do need to get two good lifts or one good lift in each of those events to qualify for the double combo. If there's an athlete who's registered in the bench, deadlift, and double combo and does not get a successful event lift for one of those two disciplines, they are automatically removed from the double combo. They can still get their award for the bench if they have a successful lift there. And let's say in the deadlift, they were unsuccessful in all three attempts, they would still get a participation ribbon for the deadlift, but they would not go into the double combination, even as a participant or a participation ribbon. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Qualifying competitions. We always look to have as many competition opportunities for the athletes and competitors in every sport as possible leading into the state championship throughout the season. Always like to say, when I was a younger individual in youth sports, and who would like to just train for 8 to 12 weeks and have one competitive experience? That's not fun to me. I mean, the training is obviously a portion of it and very important part of that, but the competition is what everyone looks forward to, or at least I did. So what's the point of a qualifying competition? It's basically to mirror image, if you will, the competitive experience that individuals will have at the state level championships, to get everyone prepared for that atmosphere, reiterating the rules, and just preparing them for that. We've seen over in the past, before these processes were implemented, that we had athletes showing up at state championships and really weren't prepared for the atmosphere and the experience at that level. So they had never been in a competitive experience. Now they're here, and it's a little different and maybe unnerving. So the more we have, the better. So we want to follow the rules at the qualifying competitions. We want to have officials in place. We want to have the medical person in place as well. And at a minimum, every athlete in powerlifting must compete in at least one qualifying event prior to the state championships. Ideally, that qualifying competition or those qualifying competitions have more than one area or county program participating. In some cases, we know that's not possible, and we do allow an in-house competition or an in-house qualifier. An in-house qualifier is basically you're turning a practice into a competitive experience with the judges, the medical personnel, and that type of thing for the athletes and competitors. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But also, there's a sanction form that is required. So again, everyone has to do it. And you can submit that sanction form through your area leadership and your area director. The area director has to approve of that. And those are to be submitted to the state office 30 days prior to that date of when you're hosting that competition. If there's any questions about that, you can contact Monty, and he can help walk you through that. But you can also contact your area director. They're well informed of this process. If anyone, we work with you guys as much as possible. So if it's, 29 days before, we're not going to necessarily say this is not valid. We just want to make sure that we're aware of it, and that other people, if invited, can plan on attending as well. So as we talked about, same thing here, just all the certifications in process, the one sanction event that everyone has to compete in. That's, again, as I said, that's the minimum. I want the athletes to experience as many competitive events as possible to prepare them for the competition and really get them ready to showcase their skills at a state championship. So as of today, which is not a surprise, we don't have any powerlifting events that have been submitted to us yet. So those of you who are on the call, and those of you who will be listening to this at a later date, make sure that you contact Monty and let him know, even if you don't have the sanction form completed, hey, tentatively, Montgomery County is looking at this date to host. And yes, we are open to have 15 more competitors from other counties or programs join us. And then you can work on that sanction form and send that along with the area director's approval and signature off on that. So this is the preseason webinar. We also have our pre-competition webinar set. And That's the one that will be strictly focused on the state championships and the Fall Sports Festival. So that is scheduled for Wednesday, October 9th at 7 p.m. Here is the registration link for that. I will say that there have been some situations where people's computers don't recognize the link. One thing we have found that's proved positive is that you can copy this link, put it directly into your web browser, and that has seemed to work for many people who may not get it straight from a link or from an email. You can also, in the next day or two, we should have this posted on the coach's resource page on our website under the powerlifting tab or the powerlifting location. And we have also found people, if you go to our website and click on the link there, it goes straight in there into the registration. So just want to let everyone know that that date has been set. Coaches training. As I talked about earlier, Jim Downs and Derek are looking at solidifying this. It's not finalized, as you see the word tentative here. It's anticipated to be on Saturday, August 10th, time to be determined. And details will be shared once confirmed with Derek and Jim Downs. And if that doesn't work out, there may be another one in Howard County. We're working through that right now. It is an in-person coaches training. As I mentioned, Derek will be the lead on that. And then we're, again, tentatively looking to host that in Montgomery County at the gym where Jim Downs has their training sessions for their powerlifting competitors. Fall Sports Fest, state competition for powerlifting, state championships. If you're not aware of that, that's on October 19th at the same place it's been for over 30 years, I believe, at Mount St. Mary's University in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Approximate time there. And again, we'll get closer as we get closer to the pre-competition webinar with all the details and the schedules. But you need to at least be there 8 to 4:30. Usually the weigh-ins potentially happen a little earlier to get the powerlifting stuff going while possibly the opening ceremony is occurring and things of that nature. When you're looking to your events and your lifts and the cards that the coaches will fill out, remember that those are to be in kilograms, not pounds. We do have conversion charts that are available at the state championships. You can also Google it online. But again, just a reminder there, the lifts are to be entered in kilograms. We're working on our officials. Derek's been very good and proactive in looking at some new opportunities to involve some USA powerlifting officials and getting some new people involved with Special Olympics, which is awesome. And again, more details to follow at the pre-competition webinar and leading up to that through communication through Monty. So some rule reminders. Derek, I want to turn it over to you. And if you're not comfortable with this slide, I can do it. And then I'll give you the next 2 or 3.
Cool. So just read it.
Yep, you can read it. Or, I mean, let me take this one and then I'll get you on the next 2. So
okay.
This one's a little different in the aspect of here in Special Olympics, Maryland, we have proposed a rule change to allow the 15-pound bar, if you will, to the international office. That has not been approved. However, they have approved the 15-kilo bar, but we at Maryland will allow the 15-pound bar. That's a local rule that we will continue to implement here at Special Olympics, Maryland. So that will be for the deadlift and bench press as well. As we have heard over the years, there are several athletes who that's their limit. And we hope to build their strength up where they can get to that 15-kilogram bar. But currently, we're going to continue to offer the 15-pound bar as one of their attempts. So again, we encourage everyone to work up to that 15-kilogram bar as much as possible, but we do understand some of the limitations there with some of our competitors, and we in Maryland feel that it's important to continue with the 15-pound bar as an option. So then I'll hit 1 or 2 of these, and then I'll hand it over to you, Derek. So the age restriction, the athletes must be a minimum of 16 years old to participate in the sport of powerlifting. So that's just a reminder there. And there's no new rules. So these are all reminders from those of you who've been involved in the past. So with that, Derek, I took the first bullet point. I'm going to hand the rest of them off to you. You get a drink of water. wet your whistle, and you can carry on from here.
Yep. So chalk is permitted on hands, powder only permitted on the designated areas of the body. So you don't want to, have your baby powder. Some people put on their legs for deadlifts. You don't want to do that over near the bench or near the deadlift platform. Someone's feet will be slipping all over it. And you don't want to get it on the bar, or their hands will be slipping. Just chalk hands, powder legs. That's it. And just have designated areas on the floor as well for all the powders. So we have a kind of a designated cleanup area, and we're not having to vacuum the whole floor after the event. Only athlete and one coach permitted on the lifting stage, along with the officials. Just it gets less muddy that way. That way, there's less to pay attention to and keep track of. Lifters have 1 minute to initiate lift. Additional time up to 3 minutes is permitted for athletes with physical disabilities. Must be requested via GMS in advance of competition. So if you have an athlete that has special disability that needs more time, just let us know ahead of time. And the 1 minute typically starts as soon as the head referee says bar is loaded. The time clock will start. You have 1 minute from that point. If weights are dropped intentionally, declared a no lift, lifter may be DQ'd. Platforms are very expensive and or hard to build, and we don't own the floor underneath of it. So that's a big insurance issue. If your grip slips, not a whole lot can be done about that. You did your best. But you'll see some higher level competitions where someone will get really excited. They may lift and they'll just throw the weight down. So just try not to do that.
Yeah, I think the main thing there is controlled lift. And what I will say is one of the things, we have the stage that we bring in for the opening ceremony, and then we transfer it over to the powerlifting competition. As Derek said, control your lifts. Mount St. Mary's is putting a brand new basketball court down currently. So obviously we're going to do everything we can from a proactive standpoint to put extra padding and stuff below the stage legs. But yeah, we don't want to be replacing a brand new gym floor. If you're not familiar with the cost of that, we'll need to donate about 500 to 1,000 cars just to cover that cost. And let me see. There you go.
All right, uniform requirements. Lifting suit, basically just a wrestling singlet. There are powerlifting specific singlets you can get. They're not too expensive, depending on what kind of logos you want. You can get them custom made, or you can just get plain black one with whatever logo for the manufacturer. There's a dozen different manufacturers out there. Undershirt is required. Yeah, you don't want somebody else's shoulders and sweat being on the bench or dripping on the bar. It gets hot in these competitions. Briefs, just have something under your singlet. Foot gear, socks. So make sure that your athletes have knee socks on the deadlift. I've been in competitions where someone's shin has been cut on the bar from deadlift, and they had to stop the competition. Someone had to go find bleach. It took about an hour. It was extremely annoying. Lifting belt is optional, but recommended. Obviously, it does help a lot, not only prevent injury, but create a good bracing and helps you lift more. Substances, only baby powder, pool hall chalk, liquid chalk, resin, talc, magnesium carbonate are permitted. So just your basic chalks and baby powder. And I don't think anybody's going to use the oil, grease, or other lubricants. That they used to do that all the time in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and then they stopped doing it because it's hard to deadlift with the bar covered in baby oil.
All right, I can take back over from here, Derek. I appreciate that, my friend. As we talked about, we'll get closer as we get closer to the fall sports dates. We'll be working on our event guide and publish that on our website, on our coaches resource page. But here's some other resources you can have as well. The coaches resource page, as we talked about, the powerlifting pages will continue to be updated. Again, like I said, in the next day or two, we'll provide the link for this recording, as well as the slide decks that you saw this evening, and additional resources as they become available, the registration link for the pre-competition webinar, so on and so forth. The other one you see there is the Special Olympics Maryland General website. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, the coaches resource page, I think everyone on this webinar is aware of it, but just to reiterate it, that the coaches resource page, although it's designed for coaches, it's open to the public. There's no passcode, no passwords or anything needed. Athletes have permission, and it's just like any other website. You go to it and it's open to the public. So that's something you can also share with your competitors, other volunteers, family members, etc., so that if they go to that coaches resource page for the Fall Sports Fest and powerlifting, and yourself or you are communicated to by some of those individuals that this isn't on there, or I was looking for this piece of information and I couldn't find it. We're not perfect, so we're always looking for feedback. If there's something that you feel would be good for the good of the group, let us know. That may be something that we just didn't think of that could benefit everyone, so we can post that on the website as well. You also have the International Powerlifting Federation website there, and the United States Powerlifting Association as resources for the coaches and others as well. For questions, as we talked about, Monty is our new sports director. Again, welcome, Monty. Very pleased to have him joining our team. Here is his information, his cell number, as well as his email address. Monty, double check me on that. Make sure I got those right today. I'm getting the thumbs up from Monty, so that's fantastic. Again, our main resource, or our main page on the coaches resource page, and then the link that will take you directly to the powerlifting section of the coaches resource page. So with that, I didn't see any chats or any questions coming in. Monty's shaking his head that he didn't see any either. So at this time, if you want to either type your question into chat, or you can use your raise the hand function, we'll call on you and let you ask your question. So we'll give 1 minute or thereabouts. For those of you who I am able to see, if you want to shake your head, we can get rid of that 1 minute. I'm seeing no questions from several people that I'm able to see here. So with that, I will say thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. Thank you for those who will be watching this presentation in the coming week that were unable to join us this evening. You've heard me say this, many of you have heard me say this, but it is a very true statement. On behalf of our president and CEO, Jim Schmutz, we thank you. I see venue directors on here. I see area leadership individuals on here. I see coaches on here. We thank you for everything you do. Without you guys, Special Olympics doesn't exist. The competitions don't exist. The training doesn't exist. We don't operate as an organization with all the support and things that you guys do, either at the state level, like a Derek, for example, a Tina, as an example, working at the Montgomery County leadership committees. Jared, who's one of the coaches. All of you guys make Special Olympics happen. But collectively, it's all of our jobs to make Special Olympics Maryland the best it can be. So we thank you for all of your efforts. We're in this together, and we thank you for your time tonight. I will just mention that at the end of this, you'll see a bunch of other additional resources. I'm going to just go through some of these. It gives some more details of some other things that you can look at your leisure. It talks about the code of conduct. That's one of the things I do want to briefly mention, is basically the code of conduct is respect. Respect everyone. Respect your fellow competitors, the officials, volunteers, everything. These are excerpts, if you will, from the codes of conduct that you can be found on our coaches resource page. There are codes of conduct for coaches, athletes, unified teammates, volunteers, family members, etc. The other thing I want to let everyone know, as far as coaches go, which I believe is also on our coaches resource page, is what we call the incident report form. As a coach, you should always have the medical forms for your athletes and competitors in case an emergency happens. You have that ready to go in an emergency situation where the medical is needed. You also should have one of these. This is a incident report form or an accident report form. It's designed primarily for injuries to people, but it is also and can be used as well for any damage to property. We hope neither one of those occur, but this is something that can be utilized from an insurance perspective, and make sure as soon as you get one of these, hopefully no one has to use it, but if you do, you fill it out completely, turn it into your area leadership. They'll submit it up to the state office for follow-ups on whether it was emergency injury or a damage to property, that kind of thing. So again, there's a lot of good information in those slides. Just want to make sure you're aware that they are available. With that, again, Monty's here. You have his contact information. We're here at the state office. Work with your area leadership. We thank you for everything you do. We look forward to a great powerlifting season. And Monty will get out some further details to the upcoming coaches trainings. And again, if you have any other questions or anything else, let us know. With that, Mike Sarnowski, anything that you'd like to add? Or Derek, I'll go to you first. Derek, anything from a venue director perspective?
No, I think I'm good. Just I do. Excuse me. We do have a Facebook page I started a couple years ago, and I was posting to it for a little bit. Didn't really do anything last year, but I'm planning on doing some more on it this year.
Okay, that's cool. And that's one of the things that Monty, if you want to contact with Monty and we send out the information, we can share that, join the Facebook group with powerlifting and good stuff there. So, Monty, anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Sarnowski?
Just a big thank you to everybody, reiterating what Steve said, for what you've done getting ready for the season, and what you'll do working with your athletes throughout the season. And always remember, your area leadership is there to help you. Please do make use of them, and reach out to them now if you haven't already done so for the season. Thank you.
All right. And with that, we will stop the recording and get that uploaded and hopefully posted by tomorrow. So